What's up, everybody? Steven here, the Horror Freak 85, here with Miss Boomstick. And in just a little bit, not too long, we'll have Tom Mcloughlin will be joining us. And if he, of course, wrote and directed Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. So we'll be talking about that a little bit and what possible plans there are for the Friday the 13th franchise, since possibly there's talks about a movie next year, but who knows? Then there was some other stuff going on that it was a tease, so I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. So it should be a good time. So what have you been up to this week?
Not too much. My dog's dealing with some major allergy issues, so I've been taking care of her. She's lost a lot of fur, so we're trying to deal with that. So that's been my main focus for the week.
Dog allergies, yikes.
Yeah, lots of baths and had to clip her fur because she's almost bald on her butt right now. And I got a visitor. Come here.
Speaking of, right?
No, actually, this is a different one.
Oh, okay. I didn't see. I just saw a visitor.
Right, yeah, he's right off camera right now. Come here, Max.
The cat, right?
Yeah. Okay. You have a tail. Say hi. Have a boomstick up my ass. Good for you.
Might be a little uncomfortable there.
Oh, broomstick. I said broomstick. I couldn't see.
Happy Halloween.
Keep your good times to yourself. All right, Max. I really can't do this right now. Come on. Come on. You can't lay on the keyboard.
Your dog might need one of the cones so she doesn't bite herself.
Yeah, I haven't found one yet, but because I haven't been able to really leave her alone because she's wanting to chew. Work at Walmart Electric. Nice.
In the good old Wally World. So, all right. Looks like we got someone joining us.
Hey.
Hello.
It's Miss Broomstick and the Horror Freak.
Yes.
Oh, somebody's echoing.
Yeah, it's echoing.
It's echoing?
Yeah, I don't know if that's on your end or...
Oh, probably. It's always my fault. Let's see.
Dude, what do you want? Okay. Fine.
Let's see. Hello. Yes. Sometimes if you just sign off and sign back on, maybe that'll help.
How's it now?
Oh.
Still echoing?
I think that's better.
Okay.
No, it's still echoing.
No, it's echoing again.
Same. How was that? Any better?
That sounds better.
1 second. Still echoing?
No, you sound good now.
I'm good?
Ow.
Yeah. Yes, you're good. Welcome.
All right. Let me go close the door on the echo chamber.
All right.
It's been closed. Okay. I'm back.
All right. Let's see. Welcome. All right. We got Danny in here and Cheetah's in here. And he says welcome. So, yeah, it's been about a year since we had you on.
Was it really? Gosh.
Yeah. Because the Horror Hound weekend is going on again this weekend, but I'm home this time. I'm not there.
Where are they doing it this time?
Same place. Yeah. Yeah. So I just couldn't make it this year, so it was working, but hopefully I'll be going to Spooky, but we'll see. So, but yeah. So how you been doing? What's new?
What's new? Oh God. So much, so much going on. Everything sort of is like, pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Mhm.
And then COVID was my period of going into, all right, now what am I going to do for my life now that I can't get to the people either in rock and roll, live shows, that was over. And any material that I had, it's like, we don't know what we're doing. We really can't take a look at anything right now. Agencies, of course, closed up and stuff. So I sort of used that, I guess it was like, what, year and a half, almost 2 years, to just kind of do podcasts to, if there was a convention, try to take it, and hope that they could, somehow keep it going up until just before without having things shut down. I mean, we just had a Days of the Dead that they just couldn't get the right agreement with Los Angeles. So they had everybody right up to like maybe a month away. And then, and I thought all this stuff was basically over, that if you just do this, this, and this, you can get in. But I guess it was far more complicated than that. So I just started writing, and that was the other kind of go-to thing to do. And one was obviously the Jason Never Dies script that I already pretty much had kind of in place, but because of the lawsuit, there wasn't a whole lot I could do with it. And then kind of the big thing has been the creation of the Diary of Pamela Voorhees. And that was something that I always watched the film franchise. I'm sorry, the fan film franchise, whole unique kind of cinema that, which I think is probably one of the coolest things in the history of the movies, where people who love the movies, who always wanted to make a movie, bonded together, threw their money together, as much money as you had, you made this thing. And then if there was any extra or any profit, it would go to donations, children's hospitals, things like that, which I thought, this is amazing, because this whole business has been about how much money can I make, as opposed to what can I make that people really want to see, and then we kind of do something good with the money afterwards. Mm-hmm. And it has its own sort of pecking order of, fans thinking, well, this is the best one, and well, this one was crap, but this one had some good things in it. But what pretty much like the movies, when you do sequels and stuff, everybody kind of weighs in and kind of decides if that was the first one they saw, they have a more open mind to it than after they've seen a couple of them. And Vincent DeSante kind of set the bar with Never Hike Alone. And that was the one that kind of everybody went, whoa, this is, somebody can do this and people really like it. And there's been obviously quite a few since. And I did another appearance in the sequel to the Vengeance films. The first Vengeance was a lot of fun, and it was based off of my idea of Jason's father. And C.J. Graham, who was my Jason, played Jason, and they asked me to play the caretaker, and I said, to do a scene opposite C.J., absolutely. So, I did that, and they had a big premiere, and actually did fairly well. So they've made another one that's coming out, I guess the top of next year. I thought it was going to be this year, but I know they did some reshoots and stuff, so I think that's, kind of pushed it off. But Vincent teamed up with this other guy, James Sweet, and they did one called Jason Rises. And I saw it and I thought, oh, these guys did a pretty good job. So I called Vincent and said, congratulations again. You did a really nice one. And then I said, who's the guy's down as director? He goes, oh, this guy, James Sweet. And, and I said, I have his number. So I called him to tell him I liked it a lot. And I said, what are you up to next? And he said, well, I don't know. I'm, been tinkering some ideas. I really would love to do something that starts with Jason's birth and then kind of goes all the way through Crystal Lake up until, when he dies. And I went, well, that's cool. That would be something. I don't know why no one's done that yet, but, I think Victor certainly, that's what he wanted with the series. So I hung up, and then that night my head sort of exploded with ideas and possibilities. And I suddenly went, this is something I would love to team up with him if Vincent isn't going to be doing this, because Vincent is making his own actually feature film version of the Never Hike Alone franchise that he's created. So I talked to James and I said, I've got some sort of like restrictions I would like to work within to see if you're cool with that. And in other words, we meet Pamela on the night of the birth of Jason. And then we basically see what happens to her and little Jason from his birth 10 years up until they hit Camp Crystal Lake in 1956. So 46 to 56. And then that period of America was, when I got into it, a very scary period. And most people don't even think about it. It was a big war and everybody, that was all horrible. And then everybody came back and happy days are here again. And, everything's going to be fine. Wrong. I mean, we lived, and the few of us that kind of remember, we lived in this horrible fear of communism coming in and taking over, of the Russians dropping one of those same bombs that we dropped on Hiroshima on us. Bomb shelters were being built. Middle America was in a very, unsettled state of mind about what's going to happen. And then strange things that a lot of people don't think about, particularly now that obviously women are finally doing what they should have been doing. During the war, they got all the jobs that their husbands had, while they were away. So when the war's over, hubby comes back and says, you're back in the kitchen, you're the baby maker, this is what their country wants, and suddenly they were really good at what they did, but now it was no longer allowed. And there was a whole thing about, we've got to get the population back up, and that's up to you, mother. And very, very strange situation. So into that world comes basically a very kind of, I don't want to say too much about her background, but Pamela has some deep issues from childhood on, and then having a baby and then trying to raise this child by herself, kind of moving across the country, trying to find work, which was very difficult. And the fact that she had a child that most people looked at like, you got to put that kid in a freak show. I mean, that's the only way you're going to make any money. And anytime they insulted Jason, little by little, Pam started to get a little more incensed, to the point where now we basically have in Middle America a female serial killer that it was sort of forgotten about. I mean, it's many things that she did, and young Jason was kind of there as witness and part of it, and kind of learned what we now know of how he thinks, or what he thinks, and that deep relationship between mother and son. There's a lot of incredibly twisted things that we've come up with, but my objective with this is very grounded in reality, in that I want people to watch this and go, wow, I almost believe this was a real story about somebody like Eileen Wuornos, who was a serial killer in the movie, Monster, or obviously a Norman Bates type mother-son relationship, except completely flipped, where obviously Jason doesn't speak. He looks the way he looks. Mother's defending him and trying to take care of him. And also she's slowly going deeper and deeper into, pure, psychotic behavior. And there's a lot of things kind of in that road along the way. So we're both very excited about it. Last Friday the 13th, we announced that we have this sitting there. And I've been trying to get it to Victor's camp, because I don't know if you know how this all broke down with Friday, is that Sean Cunningham basically gets Jason with the hockey mask and anything that kind of has to do with Jason. I think the way I understand it is the title Friday the 13th is still with Warner Brothers and New Line. And then Victor can remake the original Friday the 13th and have Pamela and young Jason. And I think Tina, and I think the camp itself, but again, I'm not too certain. But he doesn't have the rights to release this in Europe. So for somebody to want to get aboard, that means they got to make a deal with Sean. And if Sean wants to do something, I think, over here, he's got to make a deal with Victor. So this is where we sit now. These two guys and their lawyers going, okay, let's figure out how much you want if this guy gets a deal, and how much you want if this guy gets a deal. And depending on how much they say they want, either it's going to be something that'll be affordable for them to do, the studios, or in my case, I'm kind of looking at what we did as something that would be an incredible 6 or 8 series episode, extended movie, so that we really can kind of show that whole 10 years and all the things that happened. And then if we wanted to, we could certainly go beyond that. We could certainly go into that period between the summer camp closing that first year that they got there. What did they do until the camp reopened again, which is then when Jason's death occurred? So there's a lot of, things that can be mined, but it has to have Victor Miller's blessing, because this is his baby. This is what he has the rights to. And so we're kind of waiting to see if there's a point when, that will be accessible to us to speak with him. And meanwhile, there's all these rumors that are flying around, something was on Sean Cunningham's, site. And I think there's another guy, Hill, somebody Hill, Lee, what's his name? Roy Lee, who's produced a ton of great horror movies. He was saying, well, you guys are going to hear about something before the end of the year. We don't know if that means Victor or if that means Sean. Many people I've spoken to, including lawyers and stuff, says it's fans getting on their sites and making announcements and putting, these things together when it doesn't really exist yet. But everybody wants to see it happen, and we've been all saying that now for like 5-6 years. So that's kind of where this is now. And so James and I keep tweaking it, keep coming up with other ideas. If you're fans, I think you're going to love, both premises, either, Jason in the winter over Thanksgiving weekend, and the other being the early days of Pamela, to see what made her the way she is when we meet her in part 1, and also how Jason actually became the monster that we now know him to be. And there's some, just as I said, some amazing things as we started to tinker around with that we discovered. But do we have the rights to do anything? No. So we have to wait and see if we get, the blessings, from these guys, when the time comes.
Right. Yeah. Had a question. Do you have the rights to Jason's dad, since you had that idea?
No, I don't. When you write something, and basically that was in my shooting script. It goes over to Paramount. They basically have the rights to all that. And a very freakish thing happened in terms of Victor Miller's deal, that after 35 years, the rights of his story went back to him. And of course, that's what Sean was objecting to. It's like, no, it can't. But however things were worded, or if he did it, if he was like a writer for hire as opposed to being part of production, I don't know all the brouhaha with the legalities. But no, Jason's father was something, as most of you guys know, I wanted to do. And Frank Mancuso Jr. was afraid the fans were going to go, oh, no, it's going to be Jason's dad, not Jason, because they were still scheming after part 5 that, it wasn't really Jason, and Tommy Jarvis could have been him. And so when I got this call from these guys on Vengeance and asked permission, I said, look, it's not mine to give or have any benefit in it at all, but I'd love to see you guys run with the ball. And I love the fact that they chose CJ to play the part, because that certainly is a wonderful bit of Friday 13th trivia. And then, as I said, they're going on to the second one. We all don't know what's going to happen once all the legal stuff finally gets settled. Is it going to be, New Line Warners that has it, and they're going to go cease and desist on all the fan films? Or are they going to be embracing them in a way that it's like maybe as extras, they'll put them on? I've heard all kinds of theories, because it's not like these guys were making tons of money. And the only reason people do lawsuits is, hey, it's worth our time to go after them because they've got some money. These guys are broke. I mean, they are living hand to mouth. They're doing it for the love. The fans are doing it for the love. It's really, as I said, amazing part of cinema's history, that making movies because you couldn't get the ones you wanted.
Yep. I do have a question. When you were talking about Pamela and like the possibility of what's going on through the years, did you think of any idea of like maybe the dad who was in war that tracked him down and does return home, and maybe that could like bring up some mental issues too?
Well, you definitely hit upon something there. I can't go into too much detail, but yeah, the war plays a big part in this, and for a lot of reasons. Part of it is, kind of the way we set up Mr. Voorhees is he was actually released early for reasons that had nothing to do about killing the Germans or the Japanese or anything else. He was a problem within the Corps itself.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, coming back and how he meets Pamela and where she had come from. And she was pretty naive and innocent. And sort of the whole situation about her pregnancy and fathering and all that is all kind of wrapped up with a little bit different of a new mythology. And everybody, you know, as you guys know, when somebody's a fan, it's like, no, this is what happened. And it's like, no, we made up this stuff, guys. I mean, it was like, the second one was about, well, we can't make it about this kid. Well, why don't we make it, you know, like now he's grown up. Well, what about Alice? She's going to look the same. Oh, we don't worry about that. And we, you know, and we'll put a bag over his head like the Elephant Man. So that'll be kind of, I mean, it was just, you know, it wasn't like we took this off of truth, you know, and each time you kind of do your own kind of variation. So I know when I got to mine, I went back to look at everything and tried to put together some kind of mythology that at least we could kind of talk about, and then bring Jason back from the dead in a way that's like Frankenstein, obviously. And for me, he wasn't a zombie, which is why I had the sheriff shoot him right in the head. And, you know, CJ just did this and came back. And to me, it's like, okay, hopefully that kills any zombie rumors. But it regardless, it still is, you know, the original Jason and then the zombie Jason from part 6 on. But again, that's not kind of the way I looked at it. But that's the thing, is that, you know, we still can make up things, and it's all a question of, do the fans accept it? And what both James, who's also a very hardcore Friday the 13th person, and myself have tried to do is to really make it, you know, I say there's movie logic and there's real logic. And the more times you're watching something and you go, yeah, that's kind of a little of both. It's a little far-fetched, but it could happen. And then there's those times where it's completely, you know, like Freddy. I mean, you know, rules, forget it. Freddy can do whatever the hell he wants. He's going in and out of the dream realms and stuff. I remember when I was asked to do Freddy versus Jason, I was going, I don't know how you do that, because they're two different worlds, but they eventually figured out a way to do it, and everybody was happy with it. But it's to me, like the Pamela thing is very much in a almost true crime, but incredibly intense, you know, in that vein, as I said, like Monster, Silence of the Lambs, Exorcist, you know, where the characters are very grounded and real. And what's happening is like something that is awful, but for reasons that are very much from a past and triggers and chemically imbalanced. I mean, all the things that kind of fall into what makes a sociopath or psychopath times 10. And what's going into little Jason at that age and the way he's being treated at that age. All that stuff, again, breeds something that's very unique, you know, to horror history, you know, in my way of thinking. Jason never dies. Well, that's the Jason that coming back out of the lake, you know, where I put him at the end of 6, and it's in a different setting. These are girls that have never even heard of Jason. You know, this is 13 years later, so they don't know what the hell this thing that's coming after them and has an agenda of some sort does. And so that falls more in the Sean Cunningham, you know, hockey mask Jason. So, you know, one or the other I'm hoping to do. To do both would be obviously incredible, because they're very, very different Fridays.
Mm-hmm. Horror Lives Matter was wondering, aside from the time and budget constraints, what is the biggest difference between doing TV movies and theatrical films?
Well, great question. That was something that you know, years ago, huge difference. Now, I hate to say it, but the really good stuff, guys, is being done on television, and I certainly wouldn't call them, you know, movies for TV. But I mean, all these great films that we should be seeing in the cinema, you know, you're seeing either on your phone, on your computer screen. Hopefully you've got a decent big screen at home and you sit close and let it, you know, overwhelm you. Last weekend I went and saw Jaws twice. I went and saw the IMAX version, and I'm going, this is what this movie was born to be. I mean, it was incredible. Next day I went and saw the 3D version, and Spielberg and this company have created this thing called Stereo D, you know, which is their version of 3D, which is a little more subtle. But I'm telling you guys, if anybody's seen it, you know, all the water scenes, you're sitting there and that water looks like it's in the second row of the theater. it's the depth of field, the way Spielberg did his shots and stuff with like Roy Scheider and a very tight close up and stuff in the background. When they do this process to sort of separate them, it's a great 3D because it's kind of built right into what he had, created in terms of the cinematography being very, very, depth of field based. So it really worked. And it was so great to see a movie that obviously, had such an impact on all of us. And, so many people have only seen it on TV. So I was begging people, on Facebook, go, you've got to see this. Once in your life, you've got to see this epic movie on a huge screen like IMAX, because it was quite an experience. So getting back to the question, yes, so the TV movies that I was doing back in the day were very limited in terms of the budget. This sounds like it's a lot, but 4 million were like what those TV movies were done for. And most of that would go to CBS, NBC, ABC, USA, Lifetime, any of the companies that we made these things for. And you really had a few million to actually make the movie, and there was always the pressure to try to get a star in there. And most of the film directors did not want to do it, and nor did they want to hire the film directors because they were more expensive, and they didn't feel that they could deliver these things in these 16, 18, 20-day schedules. Those of us who had been doing low-budget independent type films were pretty savvy in that, if you got lemons, you got to make that lemonade some way, somehow. And the filmmakers now today are doing these things so fast, and you've got technology, of course, that we didn't have with making films. So yeah, they by and large were a less, inventive. They really were shooting close-ups, like regular television, over-the-shoulder shots, wide shots, kind of by the book. And I know when I went in, I said, I don't watch TV movies. I don't care to watch TV. I'm going to give you a film, one way or the other, and make it look as much like a feature film, as I could, which is started with Sometimes They Come Back, which was released as a big CinemaScope film in Europe, but then over here it was on CBS. And so we had to do two different ways of making the composition, very square for television and then very wide for the feature version. But after that, all the ones that I did, I really tried to make them big and feel big. Now, as I said, they are so grandiose. I mean, the things, once Game of Thrones and those kinds of series came on, movies can't afford to do that anymore. Only, Netflix and Amazon and HBO and stuff can do these things. So we're now relegated basically to the franchise movies. Because they've got big enough budgets and big enough audience that, yeah, they feel pretty rest assured. But little by little, stuff is starting to creep in there. And some good horror movies that have already made it to the screen, like X. I'm going tomorrow night to see Barbarian, which I've heard some incredible things. If it lives up to the, hush-hush hype, it sounds like it's going to be quite a surprising, movie as a horror movie. The Black Phone. I mean, there's been a lot. And of course, we, got the new Final Halloween, hopefully to look forward to. I was a little disappointed on the last one. Loved the first one of the new entry, but the last one I was a little, a few things kind of bothered me, but I'm hoping they go full out on this one and give everybody, kind of what they
maybe they'll bring the lady with the iron back. I never noticed it when I first seen it until I started seeing all the memes go around, and I thought it was so hilarious. But yeah, I had a few issues too with it too, but other than that, I really liked some of it. It was like so brutal then compared to the rest of them. I liked that part of it, but like them kept repeating, it ends tonight or whatever it was over and over again. That got annoying. They put the morgue in like the main level of the hospital where like everybody was at. I thought that was stupid, but there was just a few minor things.
I mean, I'll tell you what, my problem really is that Jamie Lee was bound to that room. And unless we believe Michael Myers is going to come into that room with everybody else, which kind of didn't really make sense, she was going to be stuck there talking about all this stuff and not out there kicking ass like she did in the previous one. And obviously what's going to happen in this last one. So movies, as all you guys know, is about people taking action, not talking about what they're going to do or not talking about after it happened. let's see it. It's all about what somebody does. And so that was very frustrating to me. And as a result, you almost felt it in the acting from Jamie and those guys, that they were way up on their level, because it's like they wanted to be more emotional than what they were actually involved with, because they were taken aside. And, like you say, that whole, evil dies tonight, it's like, okay, we get it.
Yes.
And, what's his name? Anthony Michael Hall.
Oh, Anthony Michael Hall. Yeah.
Anthony Michael Hall. Yeah. Even he, to me, was like kind of at 11 the whole time in terms of his delivery. And then by the time he said, I'm sorry, kind of went, down to 9 or 8. But that also bothered me, because that performance could have been really kind of nuanced and things that could happen, but it just felt like everything just went on loud and intense. Not to say it didn't have some great stuff. I mean, coming out,
Right, yeah.
The fire, and some of the stuff was, some great kills, all that. There's always something great. But it's
I like the subtlety of putting little bits of the third movie in both of the new ones.
Mm-hmm. And how they did Donald Pleasance was amazing.
Yeah.
Still that kind of stuff. And I'm curious if they're going to try to do anything like that, this time around, bring back anybody some way.
Right.
But we'll see. We got another month or so.
Yeah, next month. Yep. And I guess, I'd much rather see in the theater, but I guess the same day they said they're going to be putting it on Paramount and theater.
Yeah, they did that with Kills as well, because I remember, at least I think so, because I remember seeing it pretty quickly, because our theater hardly plays anything good, so I basically have to rely on the streaming service to see anything, because we have one theater, and that's about it, and I'm not able to really travel too far out just to go see a movie.
And they did
I would love to, but it's a little difficult to.
They did have like a little advertise. I don't know if it was on Facebook or whatever, but Jamie was saying how you'll want to see it at the theater, you'll want to go home and watch it, and then go back to the theater. And someone had a theory that maybe the streaming one might have a different ending than the theatrical, because they did have a couple different endings. So maybe they might show a different version on streaming than theater, but not saying that it's true, but someone had that thought maybe.
Yeah.
But
no, it's a nice thought, but if you were stuck, as you were just saying about, I can't get to a theater, and then you found out there was another one, you'd be pissed. I mean, it's like, why did I get this one versus this other one?
Yeah.
I think what she's saying is the same old thing of like, see it on the big screen, then go back and check it out.
Just watch it again at home. Yeah.
You can go see it again, and that's what made all these things work is how many times you went back. And of course, usually it was always to the theater. So the box office kept going up.
Right.
We'll see. Yeah. I mean, I can't say I'm against streaming, because it's bringing stuff that you might not have gone to see in the theater. As high as the theater prices are now. But, I'm one of those guys that have never stopped, and it was so hard during the pandemic. And the second I knew I could go to a drive-in, off I went on Friday night. Whatever it took, that thing of getting out of the house, going someplace, being around other people, obviously we had to keep a distance. But then when that, finally that wall dropped, it was just so great going to concerts again and, being part of that energy. And nothing's like it with horror movies, as you guys know. It's just, and when they're working and everybody's on the ride, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What other young directors and actors are impressing to you?
Wow. There's been so many that I'm terrible at names. I've always said that when I make movies, I know everybody by kind of faces, and I can see somebody 40 years later and go, hey, yeah, you're my grip on it. But even on the set, I'm terrible with names. I can kind of, I guess, bring up people's work, and I might not know their names specifically. But young woman who did the new version of Candyman, I didn't know where she came from. I know Jordan Peele was, founder and did that. And I thought, for a director that I had not heard about, I thought she did a really amazing job on it. Still kind of mixed with Jordan's work, because the first one was, Get Out was a hands down motion picture classic. Yeah. And Us, I loved a lot of it, but maybe again too high expectations. It's sort of like M. Night Shyamalan after he did The Sixth Sense. It's like, okay, are you going to twist the ending again? Are we going to go for it? And after a couple of twists that didn't quite work, it took a while for him to kind of get back to sea legs and start doing things, really, really well again. There's been all these little small indie movies that I keep, somebody will call me and say, oh, check this out on Shudder. And I'm drawing a blank now of something just recently that, as I mentioned, Barbarian, I'm hearing amazing things about. I'm trying not to get myself too overhyped before seeing it.
I know that's the thing. I hate when you get all hyped up about a movie and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. One of the things that I didn't really want to see, and because I teach film production at Chapman University Dodge College, that every semester I have like 40 young people between the ages of like 18 and now like this semester I've got grad students who go all the way up to 30 who all have basically an idea, and it starts with the idea and then we develop a story into a script, into casting, the whole process up to screening it on a big screen at the university that I think seats, I guess, about 1,000 people. So they really get the whole kettle of fish from the beginning to the end. And I try to, see what they're into and what did you see that's great that you can pass along, and trying to get their reactions to both older movies, which a lot of them have not seen, and then some of the newer ones. And of course, the big thing not too long ago was the Batman, and all I heard that it was yet another Batman movie, and it was 3.5 hours long. And I thought, okay, I've got to stay on the same page with these guys. I got to see if there's something. And I was absolutely blown away and did my kind of classic research as I do on any movie that just really affects me on the internet, looking up put the name in, look up every single podcast, every single interview, trying to figure out how the filmmakers thought, what were some of the behind the scenes, just that whole wonderful thing of, I just saw an incredible magic trick, illusion. I want to figure out how the magicians did that. And when I started researching the Batman and realized that, man, he was like pulling from very personal things with the relationships with the characters, and that it worked so well with what we were just coming out of, and sort of the frustration and the anger that when the Batman grabbed somebody, I mean, he beat the living crap out of them, harder and more violent than ever before. But again, he had all this rage from his parents still that he had not put into any kind of perspective. And, obviously having a love interest that he really couldn't pursue, and the styles, everything in that, I went, well, it is a horror movie on a lot of levels, but it's, it's also a drama and a kind of a futuristic feeling that also feels very much today. And the way he did the makeup and things wasn't really cartoony. It was sort of deformed and weird, and their minds were weird. And all that, I found myself going back a couple times, to see that. And found that to be one of those things like, it should get under your skin, and the detective aspect of it, it's kind of seen through his eyes. Again, the style of it, I thought was really quite wonderful.
Right, I was really surprised with that Batman. I was really not expecting it to do as well as it did. But yeah, we was pleasantly surprised by it, and we enjoyed it quite a lot.
Yeah, a lot of work went into that, and in the right way. Because as I even tell the young kids that I'm teaching directing and production and all that, first off, you've got to find where's the love in this story. Twisted, real, imagined. Everybody somehow can connect. If somehow there's something that's, even the Jason Pamela thing, that there's an incredibly bonded love, but it's also very twisted. There's a lot of people, it happens. And people who think that, they're beating their kids for all the right reasons, those kids have to carry those pains and stuff. And when you ground a lot of this stuff in things that are real things that happen in our lives, but you exaggerate them in some way, you give Jason, this faceless entity that can take care of problems when you yourself are frustrated and can't. a lot of these things are very, subconscious that occur in certain movies. And then you get a villain like Hannibal Lecter, who we were all applauding when he walked off at the end, back out. He was a great villain. I mean, he really was somebody that we liked, despite how sick and twisted, his character was. So it's all those things that somehow that relatability is so important, and no matter what genre, you're shooting. But it tends lots of times in fantasy and sci-fi and horror kind of get forgotten about over the effects, over a particular style that they're trying to do, the found footage style that it's all about that, as opposed to, are we caring about anybody? Are we relating to anybody here? Is that guy my best friend? I know what that's like to deal with a guy like that. I mean, those are the things that a lot of people don't realize, that when you tune in and that's happening, you're aboard, because you are identifying. And it's not you're sitting back going, oh, that's cool. Yeah, okay. Oh, I like that. I mean, that's a whole different thing. Like sports cars. You don't know much about the guy driving, but you see what the sports car does. And I think in movies, you've got, and TV, obviously, the movies and the series and stuff that we have now, you've got to be invested, and
so you're more, so I guess you could say more into villains that you like and want to see win or can relate to, or villains that you like hate and meant to hate, if that makes sense. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? Or
yeah.
So out of the two, you prefer like more relatable villains then?
Well, no, it's, and again, I hope you guys can, you guys all out there who are listening or seeing me, can understand, like with the script that, we finished on Pamela and Jason, there is a lot of empathy for both of those characters, in that we see why Pamela's doing what she's doing. And we also kind of feel sorry for this life that Jason didn't ask for, but then how he gains his strength and how he starts to do the things he does. There are times when we sort of are, celebrating what she does to somebody who has, really done nasty. And then when you hear how she's rationalized it and how she explains it to Jason and how the two of them can bond on this, it's far more chilling, because we're going, yeah, I can see why you want to do that. And you're going, shit, it's not just some scary person, it's you. It's tapping upon something that any kid who's ever gone, I don't want to see my parents die, but I sure wish they'd go away and get out of my life, and I want to do my own thing. Or, this kid at school, boy, would I love to. And movies can kind of let that, out, let you feel that through another character. But if you don't relate to them, if you don't understand kind of what they're going through personally, it's not that same connection that makes you. I mean, Laurie, in the first Halloween, we were right there with her, and she was us. And anytime you have that, Ellen Burstyn in The Exorcist, she was us going through that. Doesn't matter she was a big movie star and stuff. She had a daughter, and we cared about that little girl. It's that element that I think, when that works, you have a far more long-lasting and caring, where you care about the movie as well as seeing it. And to me, that was brought back again with seeing Jaws last weekend, that every one of those characters, were great. And the only asshole was the mayor. And basically, he didn't get killed, but he got his comeuppance, that his kids were out there too. He was going, yeah, open the beaches, and it's going to be, lunch for Bruce the shark there. But all of those things that they really thought about in the movies back then are sometimes missing in some of the things we get now. And the ones that do get back and tag it and get you involved, are really the stronger ones.
I do love the idea where he was talking about the backstory with Pam and Jason growing up. One of my little theories I'd put is almost a little bit similar, but something they explain, from the time period of Jason jumping out of the water till he like pops up as an adult, like something to like kind of explain that. But if you do like the background, that's even better than that little tidbit.
Yeah. I mean, we certainly did a lot of theories back and forth. And my feeling was, quite honestly, to not go into that terrain on this version. And part of that has to do with the very simple thing in all good movies. The main character, the protagonist, has a want or a need that they want or need to fulfill by the time we get to the end of the movie. If they don't have something there that we kind of understand and it's pulling us along, by the time you get to the ending, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's all right. I guess that's okay. But if it's something that's fairly clear and either they get this thing, they don't get this thing, they get something better, it whatever that is, we need to sort of know at a certain point, or at least psychologically feel sort of the subtext of what that is, or the subconscious aspect of that. And we're curious to see which of these two people, that especially if they're in conflict, is going to win. And what I tried to do with Jason Lives was that Jason was happy being down there. He didn't need to be dug up by Tommy. I mean, particularly, he didn't need to be electrified and back up and killing people again. And this is true of all the great monsters. Dracula wanted to be dead. Frankenstein wanted to be dead. The Wolfman did not want to be the Wolfman. All of these, characters always had this regret that they had to live the life they were living. And I felt like with Jason, when Tommy does this to him, that's his target. He is going to get this damn kid, and anybody that comes in his way, is going down. But it wasn't like he was just randomly killing. Sometimes he would end up, something would, take him off course, like Court and Nikki's trailer bouncing up and down. And he's like, what the, and then that leads to, 2 other kills. But a lot of it was that, he was going back to Crystal Lake and he was looking for this kid. And Tommy obviously knew he screwed up and he had to figure out some way to get Jason back into the grave, and then realized in doing some, studying, the same rule like with Poltergeist, you got to get the body back to where it originally, died. So my logic was he's got to go back into the lake and be chained down to the bottom of Crystal Lake. So we have this kind of classic, iconic, he's down there, he's chained down there, and one of these days he might get out. Because we didn't know if there was going to be a part 7. You never know until you see how they do. But that was, kind of going with that sort of give them an agenda. And the same thing with Pamela and little Jason in the beginning, of course, doesn't, until as the thing proceeds, you begin to see what his mother's influences are starting to do on him. And then there's a huge kind of surprise element that comes into both of their lives that kind of puts them in the place they are when they finally get to Crystal Lake. And, rather than have, a summer where nothing really going to happen, nobody's going to die that summer, whatever, I thought that was sort of a way of saying this is kind of where Pamela's, she doesn't know the place, but she knows there's some place that's their forever place. There's something, and it's all sort of, oh, okay, we know where, that is as fans. But I also wanted the movie to be, if you've never seen a Friday the 13th and you watch the Pamela Voorhees tapes, it completely works as a horror thriller, film with 2 very unusual, characters that are at the core of this thing, causing, the craziness and the murders to happen purely because they're rubbing these 2, in particular Pamela, the wrong way. And and she gains a strength and a way of thinking, which we hear in her diary, as the movie goes on. So we actually get inside of her head, which I thought would be really interesting. I know there was one point, I think maybe 2 years ago or something, Stephen King talked about, doing a book called I, Jason, where we would hear what Jason was thinking about, which everybody, I think, got very excited. It sounded like a very cool idea. And I, thought, well, for me, it's not the same as having somebody who's the more active one, who was the killer in the first one, before Jason really took over the reins. So that kind of that sense of what is going on in somebody's head when they're thinking these things, or how are they feeling, or what is it that motivates them to write, because it's a very personal thing, and you get a very intimate side of her that she would never show or tell somebody else, but in her diaries, you get the benefit of what she's really feeling.
Another question from Horror Lives is they're not a danger if you add too much drama? Will you lose the horror?
Another excellent question. Obviously, a horror fan. I think about that all the time, because it's true. If it depends what you think um, is a really really good horror movie, and it's different for a lot of horror fans. Some want it to start pedal to the metal and go for 90 minutes of hack slash bang, and a little bit of dialogue, a little bit of dope smoking, a little sex, and then back into it. It's sort of their way. Or torture porn, where it's really setting up people that you're going to torture until they die. Or there's the things like that I was bringing up, like, Jaws, Exorcist, Silence of the Lambs, Monster, where the drama and the horror are a blend. I mean, you are getting very horrific situations for somebody where they are treated a certain way that you don't want them to be treated like that. And you also know from the horror side of it, somebody's going to suffer for this, and I can hardly wait to see. So there's that kind of anticipation. Hitchcock years ago used to talk about, in his movies, there was a difference between a shock and suspense. And a shock would be, the example he used is, two guys sitting at a table playing cards, and they're playing and stuff, and suddenly, boom, there was a bomb under the table we didn't see that went off, and these guys are blown to smithereens. We're shocked, they were shocked. Or there's two guys playing cards, and as they're playing, the camera goes down and we see the bomb underneath the table. And it goes back to them playing cards, and now the camera starts moving in on the bomb. Now they're getting more intense, and it's getting closer. So now we're going, okay, that thing's going to go off. Okay, suspense. So when it finally does, it doesn't have the same, obviously, effect as a shock does, but it does have that same, there's a relief there. So in drama, to me, it's the same thing. If you can set this up, it's all kind of part of where it's going to go. Maybe you don't know quite what the aftermath is going to be after something happens. Is it going to cause another incident to happen? But to me, it's a question of engaging you and keeping you there, and making sure that everyone that follows, that's either a kill sequence or a confrontation sequence, has something that just takes it another level. Or if you did like Hitchcock did in Psycho, we saw the big thing a half hour in, and nothing was as incredible as that was. And it also shocked people because that was the lead of the movie, that she's dead, 30 minutes into the movie. That was amazingly revolutionary. But then the rest of it was sort of suspense. Everybody that came in there, what is Norman going to do to them? So it kind of had that element to it. But yeah, I think like with any of these, the ones that really are the most entertaining are the ones that just kind of grab your imagination, and hopefully there's a tone that feels right to you, that's scary, and a feeling of isolation or claustrophobia or whatever. So again, that all sort of plays in, which I don't necessarily look at just drama. It really is leading towards, something that's going to be horrific, obviously, if that's the kind of genre you've come to see.
Let's see. Cheetah wants to know, did Victor want Jason to die in the franchise ended?
Another really good question. From what I've read, and maybe a lot of you guys did more reading on it than I did, but I tried to do as much as I could before I did Jason Lives. I got the sense that he wanted Jason to be a fairly normal kid that was maybe just a little slow, and he couldn't swim and things. And his mother, took him to this camp, and she got a job as a cook. And then the camp counselors were obviously screwing around and weren't keeping an eye on him, and he drowned. And she went, over the top nuts. And I think there was something that was written later about her going into an institution for a short time because she was so, went so psychotic over the whole thing, and then came back and started lighting fires at the camp and poisoning the water and stuff to try and not let the camp reopen so that nothing could happen to another kid. And I think it was Tom Savini, the makeup person, that decided to make him look this kind of, I think in those days they called it a mongoloid face, that really looked like that was the way Jason looked. And that kind of stuck. And from what I can tell, Victor basically accepted that as, all right, that works. The jump, because it wasn't Carrie, the jump scare from Carrie that everybody had just seen and thought, oh, we've got to have one of those at the end of this. Because his script, Pamela got decapitated, and the last thing you saw was Tina sitting there with Mrs. Voorhees' head in her arms, looking at the camera, almost like Norman Bates, like she's going to be, the next killer. But when they decided on this, Carrie kind of jump scare at the end, that sort of changed all those rules. And still, they brought Tina back on the next one. But as we said, the logic kind of the timeline gets a little wonky there, unless you believe that, somehow her thing was a dream and that it really didn't happen. And so Jason has been out there and he saw his mother be decapitated. One of the theories. Looking at the movie again a few weeks ago, we have a wonderful thing out here, guys. And you should, wherever you are, try to campaign for this over the summer. Find some park where you can do those inflatable screens and run movies and have people come. We had 1,000 people here in Griffith Park for this thing called Cinespia, and seeing the original Friday the 13th all together. And it was like 1,000 to 2,000 people all sitting on blankets, picnic. They had, the canoe, they had the sign, and it looked great. The sound was great. And so many of the people never saw it on a screen before, much less with a crowd. It was just great. But, sitting there and seeing the movie again now after all this, I was kind of watching the police as they arrived and how they were looking at her out of the boat and things. And it became to me very clear that she was out in that boat and, they saw her there, but yet she had this, I don't know, I guess maybe they say that she spaced out and forgot all that and then woke up and said the boy, and it's like, no, we never saw a boy. So, it all kind of has that thing of what you want to, believe or how much you study the movie, to see what is it that they're saying or not saying, in it. Because the bottom line, guys, it's in those days, and it's, I guess, still today, what can, get a reaction? What can have people say that was cool? Or if you're doing, these long things, like the extended version of the Haunting of Hill House and things, and going for 8-9 episodes, you've got to find a way to keep it interesting and going and building and stuff, as opposed to, we just got to make, 90 minutes of wham bam and, get in and get them talking so they come back the next week with their friends. It did have a whole different kind of way of proceeding.
Let's see. Another Horror Lives Matter question. Do you feel there is too much messaging in modern horror films? Example, I guess, wokeness. Horrible phrase he said, but...
I feel like I was sort of one of the first perpetrators of that kind of thing, because I did, obviously, Jason Lives, and when I went in, I mean, don't we know this already? And shouldn't we be making sort of, I've seen enough horror movies knowing that anybody in a hockey mask is never friendly, or in the mask, whatever the hell I said. But, and there was a lot of that, looking at the audience, and you have a strange idea of entertainment and stuff, that I put in there just, again, to kind of have a sort of a irreverence about what we're doing, but hopefully still delivering a horror movie and hopefully delivering people that you had fun being with before they were killed. Maybe 2 years, 3 years later, something like that, I was sent a script called Scary Movie, and I started reading it, and I'm going, God, this is such a kind of a nod to other horror movies and stuff. And I said no to the script. I said, I've already kind of done one of those. I don't want to do another one. And then after about 6 months of reading nothing but junk, I came back and I said, where's that Kevin Williamson script? And, too late, William. Wes Craven took it. Oh, okay, well, he'll do a good job. And of course, a franchise in terms of being hip and, super duper, extremely hip in the last one, which for me at this point now, I sort of feel like we've done it so much that it sort of takes me out of the movie. I'm more listening to the hipness of, making comments on stuff as opposed to just kind of being with the characters, and things are sort of, accidental that they, you know, somehow there's a throwback to something before that you would know if you knew something about the genre. But I don't know. Some of the stuff, yeah, I agree that sometimes they're smarter than they should be for the kind of movie that they are. But I can't fault the filmmaker for saying, I want to put my vision to this and what I want to do with it. And I want to have this little message. And I guess if the message is subtle enough and you kind of feel it, but don't feel like it's preaching to you in any movie, you know, anything like that feels like, you know, we're at church now. We're not in a movie theater. You know, we're here to hear a spiritual message and some sound bites that we can take into the rest of our week, as opposed to just having stuff happening and it's just great to react to it because it surprises you, you know, when it happens. But when there's too much of something that you become conscious of, it's just like the camera moving. It's like, geez, stop all the jittering with the camera. But if it's working for a particular scene, you don't even notice it. You know, it's just part of the storytelling.
In Jason Lives, how did you balance the likability of the characters that were destined to be slaughtered by Jason? Very engaging supporting cast in Jason Lives, which is unusual in the franchise.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was something that was a huge marching order for me. And part of it came from during the 70s and 80s, you guys, going to see, you know, low budget horror movies when it was still something that was really sort of despicable, you know, other than like the Roger Corman, you know, Edgar Allan Poe movies, which were fairly bloodless and psychological. But there was a lot of, you know, just, you know, I Spit on Your Grave and some stuff that was like, oh, you know, it just grossed people out. Or Night of the Living Dead, you know, we could only see that at midnight, you know, and go, or Eraserhead and those things. But a lot of the movies that started to be made, they were setting up these really kind of dislikable and nasty and mean and rapist and, you know, all these kind of characters that the audiences that I was seeing them with in downtown LA and different places, they were yelling at the screen, you know, kill that bitch, yeah, rubber cuts, yeah, fuck her, yeah. I mean, it was like, wait a minute. this is like, to me, pushing the wrong button. And it just became like, I don't like these characters. I don't care if they die. You know, I found myself very removed. So I sort of went into this looking like it's like a comedy or even a, you know, a drama that's like not lighthearted, but where they get into a situation and everything seems fine. And even the original Friday the 13th, those characters were all likable. They, you know, they all liked each other and there was a really nice vibe between all of them. And I was sort of trying to get back to that feeling that this is a group that, you know, knows each other a little bit and gets to know each other a little better. And then wham, you know, they're put into this awful game of survival, you know. And that to me was a really important thing. And I was a huge fan of the 30s and 40s comedies where they talk really fast and they're very witty. And to me, that makes somebody sound very smart and very, you know, I mean, those people that you go, God, I wish I would have said that. That was such a great one-liner. And you have those people in life that just, you know, are so funny when they come up with stuff off the cuff. And I wanted these characters to kind of have that ability, that sort of sarcastic humor back and forth, like with Megan and Tommy. You know, they're attracted to one another, but there was a lot of little, you know, come on, you know, lover lips or whatever. You'd make little things that were very much like the old kind of slang back in the 30s and 40s. And that to me also sort of set these characters up like, oh, did they have to kill that one? You know, I kind of liked her. I like Sissy. Why did she have to go? And I was more wanting that to happen, that there were people that you didn't want to see go. And that's to me more of the horror of these things. Good people die, you know, and it's sad. And our movies really, for the first time, making Jason kind of the hero, which I don't think was the case as much in the other ones, where he was like the star, you know, and, you know, all the rest of it pretty much, you know, now he goes to Manhattan, now he goes to outer space, now he goes to hell, but Jason becomes the thing, you know. Friday the 13th kind of is, you know, put in the back. But I still wanted it to happen on Friday the 13th. I still wanted to be at the camp, but I couldn't think for a million years if I was a parent why I would let my kid go to Camp Crystal Lake where it had all those murders. But if it's now Forest Green, oh, So, okay, no, I hadn't heard of that. That sounds good. You know, but as Tommy said, it's Jason. All he knows is that's Camp Crystal Lake to him. He's going back to the old turf, no matter what they call it. So,
Right. Yeah, you can change the name, but you can't change its history.
there you go.
Yep.
Anything
Sorry,
else?
I lost internet for a little bit.
Yeah.
I was trying to log in on my phone, but it was having issues. It didn't want to log in. I was just about ready. I stole my husband's phone. I was about ready to log in with that, but then it popped up. I was like, well, never mind. And I guess I'm go back on the computer.
Was it storming there, or you just lost?
We have
connection?
one coming.
Oh, okay.
So it's probably because our internet, I think, goes through Madison. So it's probably hitting Madison right now because we had hiccups last night too. So
Yeah, we're so goofed up out here that all the heat. I don't think. I mean, I've lived here for 7 decades, folks. And the weather these last few weeks has been like unlike anything before in terms of just constant high 90s and 100. You know, we would always have the sunny, Southern California thing, but the constant heat. And even today, last couple of days, it's been overcast, but still, 100 degrees and overcast. Very different LA. So it gets back to another movie I made years ago, The Fire Next Time, which is all about global warming and what kind of happens, once we get to that certain point where water becomes scarce and fires break out. And, it was a weird movie to do because we were talking about, kind of America 30 years into the future. And yet we're now at that point where the movie was set. And some of it's happening. A lot of it, thank God, it hasn't happened. But it was really, great to work with people that worked on Blade Runner, who were futurist thinking. And I was saying, yeah, I want a future where everybody gets shit from Radio Shack, to fix things and stuff. It's not like you've got these great toys. You get stuff that, anybody can buy, that helps conserve, power and energy. And the cars look a little different, the way they're powered and things. But a lot of that never happened. So.
Yeah. That's funny, like when Back to the Future came out and they went to the future in the year, it's like, where's our hoverboards? They never happened.
I know.
That would have been fun.
flying
holograms and hoverboards. Go wait for them.
Yeah. One day. Let's see if there was any other questions here. No, nothing yet. Since I thought of something sort of relating to the Pamela, the history of it. Do you always enjoy learning about history? Did you do some research for the script?
Yeah, a lot. And a lot of it was stuff that I didn't necessarily mean to. I wasn't looking for something specific. I was just trying to get a sense of what things were like in 1946 and all the way up to 1956, kind of what was the climate of the country, the coasts, as opposed to middle America, where I'm, basically James and I are setting this, because I want her to be able to move from small town to small town without it being, like a big, police chase or anything. Because when you think of the late 40s, early 50s, there wasn't, things were still telephones and, if somebody comes in that has, and they still do the descriptions and stuff, but nobody's really thinking, a woman and this small child, and eventually Pamela has to do something to cover his face because it's just too much attention. And what I found that is absolutely, I think very few people even know about this, that also came out of the war, but it is so creepy looking, you guys, and so logical that this is something that when Jason saw it, he would respond to it. And we've done some illustrations of this incredible guy, Walter Figueroa, who did the drawings and stuff that are in the big, what's the name? Did I have a name for that? The big box set the Screen Factory did. I don't know if there's an actual name for that one, but it has all the movies and all the extras and stuff. But I have, for Jason The Never Dies, I have some of his sketches in there for how I've seen Jason in some of the sequences, and having him do some stuff for us on this. And it just looks so amazing because it's taking something that kind of recognized as something like that he wears later on, but it's not that at all. But it fits kind of perfectly at that time after the war. And a lot of the places that they go to and a lot of the places they hide, because they, sometimes she's got money for a room or motel or whatever, and other times she's got to get a job and get money. And so it's a really like kind of hard existence that they have. And they run into a lot of very unusual characters, some that are at effect of what has happened with the country, some that totally not. There's just an interesting person. But most people, because this, again, what was happening in this country at that time, if you were a stranger coming into some town where everybody basically knows each other, you were kind of suspect that maybe this is something to do with that communist stuff we've been hearing about. Because nobody quite understood it, but it was being broadcast constantly. And come, the early 50s when they had the that whole campaign on American activities, and they were having all these people, put on trial while people watched on early television or on the radio. It sounded really bad, and they made people that were not bad people, be the villains in these pieces. But it caused everybody else to go, "What the hell's going on with the world today?" I know. So it wasn't like everything got so wonderful as a lot of people thought after the war, and we got into the 50s, and that whole, all have a car and a house and kids and things. And then by the time we got the 60s, which was kind of my generation, we were the people going, no, it's got to be about love, it can't be about money, it's got to be about peace and rock and roll and weed, and we were into that next generation. But it's like kind of ending this at 56, where none of that happened. But rock and roll, obviously started to come in there, 54, 55, and of course Elvis, it was great seeing the new Elvis movie. I thought they did an amazing job with that. But that was an exciting period also to be, a teenager and like, this is our music, everybody, the adults hate it, but this is us, and we went through that too with the 60s, the whole drug culture thing, and Woodstock and Monterey Pop, where I was, we got to see those incredible rock and rollers for the first time. We really felt like, we had a united, just like a united headspace. We all were kind of on the same page of what the world should be like, and war and all that stuff did not filter into it. And things, it's like, I'm just not sure. I keep trying to get the temperature of the kids who just kind of got out of high school, and are they looking forward to the future? Do they like the music of today? Do they like the movies of today? But I got to tell you, so many of them like stuff from before, or if they like a mashup of something, there's some element that's new, but it's sort of the old element that kind of, they gravitate towards. And I keep saying, I'm hoping something comes along so you have your own sound, your own films, the things that you go, these are great, as opposed to now, they'll show, Flashdance, they'll show Footloose, they'll show, what's the dancing, the other one, Patrick Swayze?
Dirty Dancing?
Dirty Dancing. Back in the theaters again for a weekend, to celebrate the 30th, 40th, whatever, Grease is, playing this weekend in a number of theaters. And people are going because it's like, yeah, I love that movie. And now they get to see it on the big screen, which is cool. And then a lot of new movies, nobody's like, I don't want to see that. It's sort of hard to get people to discover them unless they stay home and kind of, cruise the stations and see if they find something, or if something sounds great that's on Shudder this weekend, or, Netflix. I mean, there's so much stuff to pick from. I'm overwhelmed. They go, oh, you got to binge this. And it's like, well, I'll binge like 2 of them. And then it's like, I got to go to bed. I'll pick this up. Certain ones I do come back to. Other ones, it's like that next week you hear this other thing. You got to see this. So you've got so many choices, and all you have to do is go with your remote, as opposed to get up, go have something to eat, and get in the car, park, pay whatever that is, get in the theater, buy the popcorn, and by the end of the night, if you brought a date, you're in $80 to $100. And if the movie sucked, shit, like we should have just stayed home,
Yeah.
So it's hard to make sure that you get, you get something, out of that amount of money you got to put out to go out and have fun.
Yeah, it was great what you said about like the kids. Like my son's 17 and he doesn't really listen to like any music that's out now. He listens to, like Frank Sinatra and stuff like that, like a lot of the older music, and he
Yeah.
loves AC/DC and stuff like that. And I don't think there's a single new artist that I don't even know half the new artists because I quit listening to the radio for a couple years now. So I've listened to stuff that I have like on my CDs or whatever, and then he listens to older stuff. I don't even know like a lot of new musicians because we don't even listen to it.
I try to keep up. I mean, not that the Grammys are any barometer of what's the best stuff out there by any means, but I try to watch just to get a name and a face and see what kind of music they're doing. And, is it very reminiscent of something else that I've known before, or do they bring a couple of elements together that make it different? But there's a kind of, at least to me, a very much of a sameness with a lot of it. And when someone comes out with a hard rock act again, like those guys, Greta, they're doing Led Zeppelin basically, and there's a whole generation now that just loves them. Greta, I should have gone and seen them live when they were not that far from my place, but that's sort of like, wow, they still like that kind of music, but it depends who the person is. Everybody really kind of has their own thing. And the only time I know they're, at least in my classes, hip to this stuff from the past is they use it as their soundtracks, in their little short films. And I said, you know that song? It's like, oh yeah, I love this song. My dad played it all, because I'm basically grandpa, and I'm still active in rock and
Greta
roll.
Van Fleet.
I want them to hear the old stuff. I want to, keep doing original stuff, but most of it kind of harks back to rhythm and blues and the stuff that the Stones and the Yardbirds and all those groups, even the early Beatles, did that influenced us. Now I have a new group that we're hoping to start to actually go into the horror conventions with, called Horror Rocks. And we put together basically probably about 50 songs at this point that are really great songs, AC/DC songs, of course, Alice songs, what do you call it? Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Pet Sematary by the Ramones. All of these songs that if you're a horror fan, you go, yeah, I love it, and do the Saturday night VIP parties at the horror conventions and be playing stuff that everybody either knows, from the past or knows in relationship to this, this movie, and then do visuals with it and, have hopefully guest artists, people that are at the convention who also sing or play a musical instrument so they can, guest up there and do some, the tunes with us. And, hope that great day comes and Alice would be there and he can, get up and do the couple of songs from, Jason Lives, whatever. But I'm very excited about this concept because it is something there. It's like we could play a club and they would know that music. And it seems sort of like we're doing covers, but with visuals. But if you play the horror conventions, that's our music, guys. That's from those movies that, we grew up loving. And try to do it as authentic as possible.
Have to contact maybe Deej, who just started Spookala. They're doing their second convention in December, and they've had bands there. Ice Nine Kills played there, and I forget. I think Corey Taylor played while he was there and stuff. But they'd probably like to have you guys there. That'd be fun if you wanted to maybe see about coming to Florida. I'm sure they would do it.
Yeah, it's kind of just working out the logistics because it's it's like flying 4 or 5 guys out there,
Yeah.
All that stuff. But it makes it worth their while ultimately with VIPs parties being more popular because people want to see the band or see some of the guests that were at the convention performing. I think there's definitely something there. And I mean, I can't stop rocking. I mean, it's still in my blood, and doing a couple of upcoming shows, and guesting in other people's bands. They've got gigs, and it's like, hey, you want to come down and do a few numbers? And it's like, yeah. And it was fun when I was at Monster Mania. I guess it was last year, and got up with the Dead Elvi and did the Man Behind the Mask and the Monster Mash with them. And again, it was great fun to get out there and, you know, be with the fans and singing the songs and kind of doing that side of my life that never gone away since I was doing it in the 60s.
Right. Got another Horror Lives Matter question. Did you watch the Netflix true crime show about the same murder you made into your TV film, The Staircase Murders? Do you think he is guilty?
Good question. Wow. You know, I started to watch it, and you know, because I had to do it as a TV movie, we had to take that whole story and go, you know, and make it work in a 2-hour time slot. And they had, I don't know how many episodes to do. So I was watching the first one and I'm going, that whole first hour we had to do in about 3 minutes. So it was sort of like I was going, oh, come on, you know, I want to get to the next step because I was already ahead, you know, knowing the story so well and having, you know, done it. So I never, and I know it came out really well, and I know those are two brilliant actors, and one of these days I'm going to have to sit down and watch it, but no, I didn't. And I'm sure they did, you know, a great job with it. And is he guilty? Oh, hell yes, he's guilty. There's no two ways about it. It was wonderful when we were doing it because I had seen that there's an incredible documentary that was already done, you know, called The Staircase. And they got two guys who had won the Oscars on another documentary about somebody that was in prison for something he didn't do. And they did a whole kind of insightful thing, and it helped get the guy out ultimately. And when they went into the staircase thing, basically Michael Peterson said, you know, I want you to, you know, see what goes on. I want you to see, you know, that I didn't do this stuff. And a lot of the footage and the way he talked and the things he did became very clear that he was manipulating, you know, the documentarians and what he wanted them to see and not see, and what he wanted them not to use and use. And this, of course, is controversial, whether that was true or not. But I took the position that, yeah, he was a very manipulative guy. He hated the cops. He had this secret life that I don't know how much this recent thing showed of that was kind of hinted upon, you know, what was on his computer and stuff that he didn't want people to see, so he erased that stuff. But just the whole thing of the amount of blood on this staircase and saying that his wife just tumbled down, it is just completely illogical beyond belief. Yet they still had to defend him because nobody was there to actually witness it, you know, and there's all that stuff that can happen where, you know, they say, you know, like, it's got to be 100% proved that this, without a shadow of a doubt, you know, they did this for them to be, you know, guilty or not guilty. Then he had somebody else in Germany when he was over there that also supposedly fell down a flight of stairs and, you know, was also, you know, believed to be beaten, you know, to death. And they dug up this person's body. And the amazing thing is this, I guess it was in Texas where it was very hot. And somehow the humidity or whatever there, when they dug this up, this woman was perfectly preserved. And they did an autopsy on her, and the same kind of wounds were not stair wounds. They were, you know, object point, you know, trauma wounds were on that. And he was there. And that's it. You know, so there's so many things that are really hard to say that's just coincidence. I mean, you know, so, but he was, again, very determined, got very on getting as many lawyers and as people on his side, including, you know, a film crew. But from everything that I saw from anybody that would talk to me, it was just like when I was interviewing people from DC Sniper when we did that story. You know, I needed to find out stuff before I could go out there and do it that I could say from everything that we find out now, this is true. And they had just found these guys 6 months earlier, but these FBI people were willing to break their gag order to give me information. I don't know why. I guess they just thought it was cool. They had the information that other people didn't have, and it was going to go in the movie. And it was one of those things where, again, there was no two ways about it. But what do I do with a story that everybody knows so well? I kind of took the opinion that what's here is a really tragic father-son story, you know, between this guy, Mohammed, and this kid, Malvo, and he did this kind of same thing, sort of like with Pamela and Jason. The things he did and the way he kind of programmed this young, impressionable kid and talking about
Alert
the
from
scene.
exchange password
It was
required.
just amazing.
What's that?
And
no.
when you start to realize exactly how it was done, it was really, really frightening. Something happened.
That was weird. Sorry.
Sorry, there was something. Voice came. I
Some
don't know if
robot voice popped in saying something about a password required. It was weird. It threw us off.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All I did was unplug my charger. I don't know if it was that or, but I've never heard that before though. But
I bring
anyway.
a bevy of spirits with me wherever I go. Never know what to do.
Well, we got spirits in this house. So.
We got spirit. Yes, we do. So speaking of true crime, is there any true crime, whether it's recent or further in the past, that you would like to do a movie on?
God, nobody's asked me that in so long because that's all I did for so many years. Something recent that was really intriguing. I know there's been a couple things where I went, oh boy, somebody's going to do that on Lifetime or someplace because they don't do them on network anymore. They usually now make them into huge HBO things. What was it that just recently I thought just so fascinating? I'm sorry, it's one of those ones. If I knew in advance, I could probably maybe I jotted it down or remembered. I can't think. There's just those things that come along too. That the recent death of the actress. From Psycho.
Anne Heche.
Anne Heche. That whole thing, as that unfolded here that day, I don't know why it hit me, but for 3 or 4 days afterwards, I was really haunted by her and what happened and those stories that came up about her going to somebody's house and talking about aliens and then the guy that she, just before this crash happened, that she went and bought these silks or something from, and he said that she just was completely normal and nice, and he did a selfie with her and her in the car, and then suddenly this ride to craziness, and crashing into something and crashing into the other thing and setting the house on fire and 40 firemen showing up and her, having these horrible burns and stuff and them waiting because she had already said she wanted to donate her body parts. So, they needed to make sure all that was taken care of before they could declare she was actually dead. And then I went back and looked at her body of work, and there's so much that she has done and things. And I thought, this is just such a weird death and just a weird situation with all that. And I don't know if there's a big story in it, but just every so often something like that will occur. And you just kind of wonder, why was her last act like that? Why was it going out in that very awful situation? And I've only heard, she was a really wonderful, sweet woman who loved to work a lot, and she certainly did. Huge body of work. But yeah, just in terms of any like these, big crime things, there's been so many these days that until somebody does a book and you see all the real bizarre intricacies of these things, because so many of the things I did were based on books, Murder in Greenwich, Murder of Innocence, the one that Valerie Bertinelli did. Obviously, the In a Child's Name, which is kind of the first thing. It's a huge book. And the great thing about books is you can read and get all these details and all the characters and what the parents thought and stuff. And now you really can look at the case as a real thing, and these are just not somebody that just went off one night. This was all kind of leading towards this inevitable outcome. And that's to me is the scary thing. And people see it and it's like, not my problem, or I don't want to get involved.
I think a good one. It's just my opinion, but I watched a little bit of the court case. I like watching court cases. I'm weird, but there was this guy in Wisconsin. His name was Chris. His last name escapes me at the moment, but it was like after July 4th, not this one. I think it was a couple years ago. He reported his parents as missing, but he was like an adult man. I forget his age. We'll say 30. And he reported his parents as missing. He still lived at home. And he said that they had went off with some friends to go somewhere, and then it goes on for a while, and they end up talking to these friends and whatnot, and they's like, where are they, basically? And so they end up putting a missing report in saying that they were missing. And come to find out, it gets exposed that one, he killed his parents, he dismembered them, hid them like different places. The parts of their body were found in the house, in the fireplace. He took some of them out in the woods, a different location. Um, he lied about having a job, going to school. Like his whole life was basically a lie. And it ends up coming out of all this. And there was really, they like supported him, and he lived in their house. And there was like no tendencies of having a background in anything, like no red flag saying this kid is gonna like snap or whatever, and he just up and murders his parents one day. And what was weird about the court case is they brought in the girlfriend to testify, and the lawyer, not his lawyer but the other lawyer, was saying, she absolutely had no part in this, like was emphasizing it to the jury. And I was like, I don't know, because she had actually stayed in the house after he murdered and cleaned up the parents, and stayed in the house. And some of the body parts were actually found on some of her relations. I forget how they were related. Some of her relations' land, like he went out to visit and then just dumped some of the body out in their land. So they was like, yeah, she had absolutely nothing to do with it. I was like, I don't know. I think she might have known a little bit more than what you're letting on. It was crazy. I wish I could remember his last name for the life of me, but yeah, if you look up Chris something that murdered his parents in Wisconsin, you'd probably find it. It happened not too far away from here.
It'd be fun to see behind the scenes of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Yeah, I've heard there was somebody was going to do a documentary, but always people have, usually when people do a documentary, they don't always look at both sides. Not all, but some documentaries don't always look at both sides. They'll side with one way or another. And what I've heard so far is the ones that are talking about it now are siding with her side. I don't know what side you're on, but I watched every minute of that case because, like I said, I'm weird. I like watching court cases. And I watched every minute of that. And yeah, I'm definitely, at first, long time ago, I did side with her. And then I seen her depositions in the UK case that wasn't against her, but it was against the Sun paper. And I saw her on the stand there, and I'm like, there's no way this bitch isn't telling the truth. This is no way. Excuse my language, but no. She's rolling her eyes and eating food on the stand. I'm like, really? And then it comes here to America, and I watched more of the case and learned. I was like, yeah, no. I'm not saying it was pleasant. Everybody was great. I'm sure Johnny had his parts, but yeah. Not saying he's 100% innocent, but yeah, there's no way that all of that is that she claims is true.
Yeah.
I don't know. As much as I guess it was entertaining, and I certainly love some of Johnny's reactions and his one-liners and things. It was just kind of fun to see.
The lawyers, a mega pint. A mega pint?
Yeah, mega pint. That's exactly the one I'm trying to think of. And just the way he would sort of process it like he does, as an actor, in those kinds of scenes. But it was like so much personal stuff too that you kind of go,
yeah,
I don't want to be hearing about, what he found on his pillow,
Bad dog.
Yeah. But, at the same time, it would certainly give America a lot of distraction post COVID.
Yeah. Is there any novel you would love to make or see as a movie? His is Swan Song by Robert McCammon.
That's a good one. I hope you do that. That'd be great. Is there something? Well, it's weird because this isn't really like what you call a classy novel, but I think if you're an older fan, or even if you go back and kind of look at some of the horror movies and things from the 70s, there was a number of books that were done by this author on the character Dr. Fives that Vincent Price played in 1971, and then they did a sequel almost immediately, Fives Rides Again, or Fives Rises Again. And a producer, asked me if I'd be interested in doing an updated version of that, and so I started to go back and read a lot of the stuff, and it's really out there. But the thing that I kind of really love about it is that there's a kind of a classic. If you saw the movie, the original one in particular, it has kind of a classic Gothic love story of Vincent and this woman, and that he so loved her and things, and he gets in this horrible car crash that mutilates him, and she is dying and goes into a surgery, and there's these, surgeons that are supposed to, help her and save her, but they don't. She dies. And he becomes obsessed with going after each one of these guys, but also he was like a vaudevillian, like magician and showman. So everything that he does is very fantastic and showy. So it has a great theatricality, to the whole thing, and just very, very bizarre ideas about preserving somebody after death till you get to the point where you can resurrect them, and stalling off death through a series of things for yourself, but still, you're decomposing underneath, but you've made this makeup, and in this case, like Vincent Price, just like these very kind of twisted, weird ideas that I thought that could be done again, and he could be, to me, be a very interesting kind of, old iconic character from that period that's sort of been forgotten about, and this could kind of go on with a bunch of different, interpretations, or like a, like the Bates Motel or something, where it's like a horror thing that, could run a few seasons. But, this producer I know has the rights, and the original writer, is involved, and I'm going, well, this could be fun, kind of go off the books and things that he wrote. But as I said, it's not what you call like a, great novel, because those are so hard to score. The ones that are really great, they already buy them in the galleys, and if they get out there, then so many people can jump on them so fast. But this kind of through the back door for me, and I'd love to see if that will all kind of work out.
All right. Let's see. Did you have any other questions, Boom, on your end?
Just other little theory things to throw in for like the future Jason movies, but yeah, I like your concept with bringing the dad into it. I think that would be good, because we really don't know much about his dad, unless of course you watch the fan film. I haven't got a chance to see it, so I don't know how much he's portrayed in it. But if Jason would ever go to anywhere else besides New York or space or whatever, where would you like him to go?
Where would I like him to go? Miami Beach. No.
Miami Beach. Put him
to a rock concert or a festival. There we go. A festival or rock concert. That would be
a
fun.
Rave.
There we go.
Oh, he was kind of in a rave before.
And he gets sucked into the Bermuda Triangle down there somehow.
Yeah.
It's a good question. It's so hard because I've spent so many years like thinking about, do we want to see him out of that environment that is always kind of looked at as, the scary thing? Is there another forest that he'd be in, but why? And what would, that whole concept of Jason Goes to Manhattan, I thought sounded funny and would have been, I think, a ball to have done some stuff there where it sort of was like an accident some way how he ends up there. But then it's like he's this infamous New York serial killer behind this mask and stuff. It just seemed like there was a lot that could have been mined out of that. And maybe the writer director, what had that planned, and then budget wise, it just couldn't do it. It was like Vancouver and on a yacht, and what little they could do in downtown Times Square there. But I mean, just that concept of him in a big city in some logical way that would happen, and I think could be fun.
I liked your concept where you said put him in another forest anywhere, because that kind of goes to what I had an idea of. Like, take him to like Washington State, and Washington's usually famous for like Bigfoot sightings. So stick him in those forests and have him fight Bigfoot. Just have some corny ass movie. I like the corny ones. I'm sorry. My husband said England, so he ain't.
Well, we'll just make that a fan movie. He can make that.
Probably.
Who would you cast as Fives if you did that movie?
Well, we already have somebody who said yes, and I don't know if I'm supposed to allow that out yet.
Okay.
But I promise you won't be disappointed in terms of somebody that is an iconic actor and certainly been associated with the genre and probably one of the most infamous, just say, violent films in film history. And that's all I'm going to say. I don't know yet, but I was very stoked, very excited to hear that.
We'll just have to keep an eye out for that then. And
we're working on it, guys. I'm hoping I can pull this together. They can pull it together.
So, who would you like to see as Jason today?
Well, I'm very loyal to my CJ Graham. 35, 36 years now. We've remained very good friends. Not just going to the conventions together. It's like he gets something and he goes, hey, why don't you get my pal Tom on this too? And somebody calls, yeah, CJ said and do the same thing for him. It's like and when I was writing Jason Never Dies, that's all I pictured in terms of his look, way he moves, all of that. Not that I have a thing against Kane Hodder. I thought Kane brought stuff to that role no one has done before, which is great. All the guys all have something unique about it. But just for me, and just how we kind of bonded with the Jason character on that whole resurrection thing and how he was going to move after he had been, electrified, with just that kind of touch of that slightly Terminator, sharper moves and things that he did, kind of CJ and I was kind of on the page of putting that together. So I kind of stay loyal there.
Right. I forgot when I was watching it, at the beginning of it, like when he first comes back, it almost has like a little James Bond kind of feel, but him as Jason, instead of the gun and bullet, you got the machete going down. So I guess, was that a little inspiration there you thought of doing?
Yeah. Well, the first movie my father took me to when I was a kid was Dr. No. And, I was just blown away by James Bond. I mean, it was my age. It was like, I got to be him, and suddenly all my little 8mm horror movies that I was making, suddenly became James Bond and horror James Bond, and so, because I wasn't quite ready for girls yet. But it was one of those things where it just stuck, and so I saw, a huge Sean Connery fan, kind of, stayed with the series, kind of got away from it a bit with the Roger Moore period of some of them, and then kind of got back on, again, Craig, came involved. But anyway, back then, the only long franchise series was the Bond movies, and Jason now was going into part 6. And I thought, why not do a nod to, this childhood hero of mine and put Jason in that circle? And it also kind of set the tone of saying, look, we're going to have fun with this. It's not going to just be, straight ahead, slasher. It's, we're going to have a sense of humor, try to put some things in there that's sort of different, whether it's an underwater fight or car chase or having all the kids actually there, instead of asleep, in their beds. All of that to me kind of was saying we want to make it more of a movie. And I've always kind of talked about film is kind of like a personal vision of some sort of smaller, intimate story, although it's obviously used for everything now, film by. But I've always thought films were a little more cinema, and movies are like, shit, these are for us. even for us mud people, we go in there and want to see a good movie, and something's going to entertain us, Terminator, that's a movie, it's like you go and Jaws, movie, although it has a lot of incredible art, that to me was the whole thing about my Jason was I wanted to make it, not a slasher film. It was going to be just an entertaining movie, with Jason and friends.
Yep.
Be like I don't know if you've ever seen the Merkins, but they make parody music. They have this one video where like him and it was like Jason, Freddy, and I forget. I think it was Ghostface, maybe Leatherface. It's been a minute since I've seen it, but they're all holding hands, skipping down.
yeah, you should go on. If that's the only one you've seen, you have to go on their site because they.
Yeah, I followed their YouTube. I've seen more since a minute. It's been a while since I've seen that video particular, but
they really.
The recent Forrest Gump one was funny that they made fun of Forrest Gump.
I like the Ice Ice Baby. I seen that they actually gave that Halloween mask where they gave the Ice Ice Baby thing. They actually gave it to Vanilla Ice. I forget what they called the song, but it was basically the Ice Ice Baby with Michael Myers.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're great. I love them.
Well, guys, I've got another thing in 10 minutes, so
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I was going to say, I think that's pretty much it. Unless anything more you want to tell us, or that you can, or appearances, or anything at all.
Right now, that we're just waiting for the decision. Obviously, is Jason Never Dies, or Pamela Voorhees, the Diary of Pamela Voorhees, the rock and roll thing. Obviously, I'm hoping we can get that out to you. Ask your local convention. Horror Rocks that's HORROROXX. So it looks, Anthrax kind of, definitely looks heavy metal logo. But I kept thinking about, what's a cool name? There's a lot of cool names, but I thought, why not just say what it is? It's horror and it's rock and roll, and to me, horror rocks. So it just kind of fit for that. And most of that stuff is kind of in that metal category, although. Sympathy for the Devil is one of them too. From Interview with the Vampire, and there's been some great songs over the years that have been used in these movies. And if you haven't seen a list of them, it's pretty amazing. Anyway, no, I guess that's pretty much it. And I hope to meet you guys some point at convention or some place that.
Or maybe camp again. I don't know. I wish I could have gone last year, but maybe yeah. I loved being on location. That was such a great experience. But it looks like Horror Lives. He said this was worth staying up to 1:45 a.m. I guess obviously some time difference there. He said that you're a fantastic guest and filmmaker.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we always love having you.
So, late night, so vampire after my own heart there.
But you have a great night.
All right. Thanks again.
Okay. Great. Take care, you guys.
You too.
Bye.
I think he froze when he left.
No, he's not froze.
Oh, okay. I guess he can hit it. But,
you might have to remove. Oh, there he goes. So you might have to remove.
I was going to say I might have to remove him. Now that would be a good way to throw a little exit. And I hope those Friday ideas turn out. Those sound really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If they ever made another verse, which I didn't want to keep him because he had to leave, but if they ever made another Versus movie, who would you like to see go up against Jason?
Leprechaun. No, I'm just kidding. That would be so weird.
I pick Pinhead. I think he would be fitting. He obviously speaks. You don't want to pick somebody like Michael Myers that don't speak and have two silent characters. But, he speaks. He's from hell. He can, drag him out with his chains.
There we go.
My husband
he can just chain him down. Yeah. So
he picked Predator, which I thought that was a good one as well.
Oh.
That would be a really good fight. And even though the Predator is silent, There'd be enough action.
Yeah.
Loud motorcycles, sorry.
Who else would be good? I don't know. Let's see. I don't know why I can't think of anyone right now.
Right.
But...
I tried to ask my son too, but he's like, I need a little bit more time to think about it. Like, just pop somebody. Well, he probably don't know as many. He don't watch as many stuff.
Victor Crowley.
That would be interesting. I didn't think about him, but yeah, that would be interesting.
Well, then would Kane Hodder play both parts? Like Jason?
No, that'd be too rough. Well, like in the Hatchet movie, what was it? 3, I think. I think it was 3. Derek Mears is in that movie, but he doesn't play like a masked character or anything. I think he's like a mercenary or something. So they did fight in that movie.
Yeah.
So technically, there was Jason on Jason action in that movie. So
Jason on Jason.
So I guess he could be maybe. Well, I don't know if Derek Mears would be interested in playing Jason again, but he's only done it once. Throw him in. Yeah, Jason. Oh, what?
You guys keep missing a classic matchup.
Who?
Jason versus Leatherface.
Jason. Yeah, but Leatherface.
I was thinking that, but I'm like, I don't really care to see that one. I don't know.
It'd be interesting, but Leatherface isn't like immortal. I was thinking of somebody
like Jason would just stab him and he's dead and it's over, so it wouldn't be much.
Right. But yeah, Leatherface. I mean, he could battle him with his chainsaw for a little bit. I mean,
yeah.
Or bring Grandpa out in the wheelchair and see how that goes.
That would just be too quick of a battle, in my opinion, since he's just a psycho killer human. There's not really a supernatural quality.
Right.
So.
I liked this first idea with the Predator. That was better.
Yeah.
Or aliens, now he's saying. I think Predator would be better.
Well, if Jason goes back to space a second time, he could fight the aliens.
Because if you watch the alien movies, you find out, like, in the later movies, that basically the alien, when it comes out, it's like the way it looks, like, goes onto your DNA. So if he gets one of those face huggers, well, if he gets past the mask, it's a face hugger. And gets an alien in his body, if it comes out, what it would look like? It could be an alien Jason.
He adopts it and gets a little face mask from Dollar
Tree. It'll have a deformed face like Jason did when he was born.
There we go. Oh, I got it over my hair this time. It's still not going on right. There we go. It's about as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
I should have went upstairs and got my hard mask, but all I found was this generic thing. Excuse me.
So I got a message back from Lou. So hopefully the 22nd will work out. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. So
cross fingers.
It's like, I don't know. I think after 3 times, though, I might have to just say, yeah, I don't know. But
I'll try to set up like the promo thing beforehand and see if he shows up to that.
I have the link, but I mean, I'll talk to him the Monday and make sure. And so,
right.
We'll see. But
yeah. It's good to see he's busy, but we want to see him too. We want to be selfish, damn it.
So, but yeah, there should be some cool stuff to talk about. I still haven't watched any episodes of You that he's done. So
yeah, I've already watched You. I've watched quite a bit of his stuff. I think the only thing left I really had to watch was let me pull up my notes. I think it was Axel and the New Evil Dead, because I was kind of waiting on that. And there's a few other just random stuff that I hadn't seen, but I had watched quite a bit of his stuff.
Did you watch Spring yet or no?
Spring. I do not have that in my notes, so either I didn't have that on any of my streaming services.
I thought it was on Shudder. I thought I saw it on there. But
I don't know. I'm not seeing that.
Because when we were going through it, I thought spring was on there, but
I may have dismissed it too. That could be a chance. So I don't know. Is there
either
a
way,
movie?
yeah.
Is there a movie called Spring on Shudder? Let's find out. Now that
Inquiry
my
minds
computer
want to
actually
know.
works. Oops. And it would help if I could spell spring. There we go.
It's
there
ring
is.
with an FP or SP.
Oh, okay. All right, we're gonna stick this in the list.
There you go.
I missed that. Yeah. There we go. So I better put it in my notes or I'll forget. I could put it in my watch list, but if it's not in my notes, I will forget. There we go.
So, alrighty. Well, I'm gonna get ready to go to bed soon. Work again tomorrow. Yay! But that was fun. I'm glad we got to talk to Tom again, Tommy. So
Tom's great.
yes, good stuff. Got some interesting things to look forward to in the future. So fingers crossed. We'll see which comes first, or if both, or who knows. Whole crazy Jason trial.
Yeah, hopefully something gets work. I did see that article you was talking about that they were just kind of because they had put. I think it was New Line had the. I remember doing the news report on it, but it's
that
been a minute.
That Twitter post or whatever about
it was
Jason
Instagram
comment,
that they
yeah.
posted, and they ended up deleting it. But they posted on Instagram. It was like a message from Jason saying that he wanted them or something. I forget what it was. It's in my news. I didn't do one this week because there wasn't enough articles to go on, but news from last week that I talked about that one. But yeah. And then I also broke it down and have the small segments on TikTok. Because it got struck. That video in particular got struck. Got a copyright, or it wasn't copyright strike. It was a guideline strike. But I appealed it and it immediately went away. It was like we were leaving out the door because that's the day Friday was the day we left to go to my parents' house. We leave and go out the day. And I just posted the video. I was like, I got a guideline strike. What the fuck is this about? So I appealed it, and by the time we made it to Illinois, it was back up. So it was like under 3 hours that all happened. I was like, what the hell? I put it up. It gets struck down. There's nothing wrong with it because I'm usually pretty good about copyrights, even though I don't know TikTok because they use copyright music, so I don't really understand their copyright rules. But I'm usually pretty good with copyright. Now I learned my lesson off that already. And it's like all of my other news segments were on there, and they were perfectly fine. But that one particular one, I think somebody maybe got pissed and flagged it or something. I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know.
So
I just said I violated the guidelines and didn't even tell me what guideline I violated. It just said guidelines. It's like, there's a shit ton of guidelines. Pick one. Like, let me know which one.
1-B1745-3. Like,
I was worried I was going to have to do a little bit more than appeal, but yeah, I appealed it and immediately went back up. So whatever it was not done properly. So.
Well, it sucks. They took the music off to my Jay and Silent Bob one, which character are you? And I did the background where he was saying, I'm fucking bored. And then the Wild Horses plays and he's like, would you fuck me? So like they took all that sound away. So I'm just going, like, yeah, you can't even hear me. You just see me going.
That doesn't make sense because you said you got the song off of there that you put in there. Of course, I think I missed. I don't remember if I saw that one or not. I know which one you're talking about, but I don't think I seen it before the music got taken out. But yeah, you said you tagged that, added the sound. Excuse me, from TikTok.
I did a search from TikTok and I found that whole clip from doing it on TikTok.
So yeah, you You use their sound, but then it gets taken. Yeah, see, that's what I don't understand.
And I mean, there's other, and it could be because of the language, because there's other stuff that was saying fuck, and you know, it does. I mean, so I don't know, but
Yeah.
whatever. So it's just a silent video of me going, like, no sound. And then I'm like, ooh, just like it was so weird, like the while I was playing. But oh well.
Yeah, if I had one get removed the sound, I would probably just delete the video. Just
I
my
probably
personal
should.
thing.
I think I should, but like it counts as the views on there and stuff because I did have a lot of views on it. So.
Oh, gotcha.
Well,
Well, then I
enough
probably wouldn't.
views to keep it where later on I can, you know, get stuff out of all the
Gotcha.
views there,
Yeah,
so.
I would probably not delete it then.
That's the only reason. Otherwise, I would, but I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to pass out and go to work tomorrow. So thanks
Nice.
everyone who watched, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.